So, get this, a single phone call on February 3rd, 2026, and just like that, the entire trade relationship between two of the world's biggest economies gets a complete overhaul. In this explainer, we're going to break down the landmark US-India trade agreement that has just completely pivoted their economic partnership. And this number is really at the heart of the whole story. From a staggering 50% all the way down to 18%. Yep. After 18 long months of things getting more and more tense, the United States slashed its tariff rate on Indian goods. And this wasn't just some small tweak, it was a total U-turn on their policy. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How exactly did they structure this massive reduction? And what does it really mean for India's standing in the region? In order to really get the new deal, you gotta understand the old one. That 50% tariff wasn't just one single fee. It was actually two separate 25% tariffs kind of stacked on top of each other. The first was a basic reciprocal tariff, and the second one, that was a penalty, a punishment, specifically aimed at India for buying Russian oil. So what the new agreement does is just completely tear down that old structure. That 25% penalty for buying oil, it's gone, wiped clean. And that baseline tariff, that's been knocked down to an effective rate of 18%. It's a real 1-2 punch that gives Indian exporters some serious breathing room. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how this changes the whole game. At 18%, India suddenly has a clear advantage over its main rivals in the region. You've got Vietnam and Bangladesh at 20%, and then there's China way up at 34%. This isn't just about relief, it's about giving India a real strategic edge in the market. And this timeline, wow, it really paints a picture of the economic pressure cooker that led to this moment. You can just feel the heat turning up, right? First, the 25% tariff hits in April 2025. Then it doubles to 50% in August. And bam, look at the result. Exports plummet by almost 30%. That pressure just kept building and building until, well, something had to give. And this new deal is what came out of it. So when you make a move this big, how do the markets react? Well, as you can probably guess, the response was immediate, and it was loud. India's main stock index, the Nifty 50, just shot up, closing with a 2.5% gain. That was its best day in 9 months. It's pretty clear investors weren't just happy with the news, they were absolutely thrilled to have all that uncertainty gone. And it wasn't just the stock market. The Indian rupee had its biggest single-day gain against the US dollar since way back in 2018. It strengthened to 90.27. That's a huge signal of confidence in India's trade situation moving forward. This quote from Radhika Rao over at DBS Bank really puts it all into perspective. She's calling it one of the strongest external growth stimuli for the economy this year. That tells you this is way more than just numbers on a page. It's seen as a genuine engine for economic growth. Okay, so with a major shift like this, there are always going to be winners. But the big question is, who are they? And just as important, are there any hidden costs or headwinds we need to be thinking about? The main number here is just huge. We're talking about something like $48 billion worth of Indian exports to the US that are now set to get a direct benefit from this deal. And when you start looking at specific sectors, you can see just how life-changing this is. The industries that got hit the hardest, the labor-intensive ones like textiles and apparel, their duties dropped from 50% all the way down to 18%. Gems and jewelry see this massive cut from over 52%, and marine products, which were facing tariffs near 60%, they're now at that same 18% too. But, and this is a really important but, this relief doesn't apply to everyone. While a lot of sectors are breathing a sigh of relief, some key industries like steel and aluminum are still getting hit with those really high, pre-existing Section 232 tariffs. Those duties weren't even on the table in this negotiation. Now, a deal like this doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It came with a pretty major strategic concession from India's side, and it all revolves around where they get their energy. As part of the deal, India has agreed to stop buying oil from Russia. And when you look at this chart, you realize what a massive change that is. Right now, Russia supplies over a third of all of India's crude oil. It's their single biggest supplier by far. And here's the trade-off, right? By buying that discounted Russian crude, India was saving a ton of money, somewhere between $10 and $15 billion a year. That huge cost saving is now being given up as a key piece of this new trade deal. So all this brings us to a pretty important reality. Even with the big headline number, this deal is, well, it's not exactly finished. There are still some really crucial issues between the two countries that are very much up in the air. I mean, you can see right here, some big questions are still unanswered. India's special trade status, that's the Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP, that lets developing countries send some things to the US duty-free, that hasn't been brought back. We also don't really know the details of market access for American farmers. And like we said, those tough tariffs on metals are still hanging around. And this has, of course, led to some criticism. This quote from trade economist Biswajit Dhar kind of nails it. He points out what looks like an imbalance. The US is putting an 18% tariff on India, but India is apparently giving some US goods duty-free access. So 0 versus 18. He's asking, is that really something to celebrate? It's a fair question about who conceded more. So let's zoom out and try to pull all of this together. What does this deal really mean for India's economy and its place in the world moving forward? At the end of the day, you can really see this as a carefully balanced trade-off. The US gets a huge win on its geopolitical goal related to Russian oil, plus it gets promises of selling more of its own stuff in India. And what does India get? It gets its export competitiveness back, and maybe just as important, it gets rid of this giant cloud of economic uncertainty that's been hanging over everything. And all of this leaves us with one final massive question. For India, there's no doubt this is a major strategic pivot, moving away from one partner and closer to another. The challenge now is to turn this new market access into real, lasting growth, all while dealing with a new and probably more expensive energy situation. So will the economic upside from more exports be enough to outweigh the strategic and financial costs of losing cheap oil? That is the billion-dollar question that's going to define this whole new era of trade.